So today was allocated to be a studio day and I was hoping to carry on with my portrait, but I also want to make a video about closing the 5 doors to anxiety, door 2, which is confusing worry with productive problem solving. But basically what we're dealing with is worry. And worry is a problem of itself. Now I'm saying confusing worry with productive problem solving, but worry itself is the problem, door 2. Now, the reason it's a problem is because it's a thinking process, and it kind of goes like this. It's like a whir tornado, and it takes you down to, well, it takes you down to misery, right? Worry in, misery out. And the reason it's not productive is that worry is you trying to solve a problem or answer a question. Okay, so we have a problem or a question that needs to be answered. What if this happens? What if I do this, what's going to happen? Will they be okay? Will I be okay? What's going to happen tomorrow, the next day with respect to this? And of course, we have the past, the present, and the future. Now, you think you're worrying in the present, and in fact you are. But what are you worrying about? You're worrying about the future. What if that happens? What's going to happen if that goes on? And the example I always use, I know it's crass, will the aeroplane crash? Will my kids be okay? Will we have enough money? Well, you're only ever going to find the answer out in the future. So to worry about it in the present is to fundamentally occupy your mind with something that your mind cannot resolve adequately for you. That's why worry is a pointless activity, because it doesn't have an outcome. Well, not true. It does have one outcome: misery. Because worry only makes you feel more uncertain. And feeling uncertain then allows you to think negatively, to catastrophize, to sort of generate actually physical symptoms, etc., etc. So, worry is an unproductive system, and I call it the thinking part of the experience of anxiety. If you don't worry, most of your anxiety problems will be massively, massively, massively reduced, and for some people they'll go away. If you do worry, every single anxiety problem is ramped up. And ramped up to the extent that you worry, which could be, any extent at all. What I'm going to introduce you to now is the Freedom from Worry ladder. And it's a sort of a process which enables you to stop the worry process. So the worry process is something which has to be stopped, because it will not stop itself, because mostly it's habitual, but you also might think, well, it's useful, it's a good thing to worry. So this is the stopping anxiety, stopping worry ladder. So the first thing you have to do is you have to understand what worry is. If you don't understand what worry is, you are doomed to repeat the worry process. So as I've said, it's trying to predict the future, answer a question, figure something out where the answer's in the future. Basically, it's crystal ball gazing. There we are. It's trying to predict what's going to happen. And the trouble is, you can't do that. So the first thing you have to do is you have to understand what worry is. And you'll find some videos about worry in Anxiety Wizard if you use my program. But basically, it's a pointless exercise. The second thing you have to do is you have to identify when you worry. Now, because worry is really an overlearned process, it's very difficult often for people to go, well, I'm worrying, right? Most worry is even below or just on the edge of consciousness. You could just be like going through your day, worrying in the background about stuff. Yeah, well, I hope I'm going to get this done, well, I'm not really very good, what's going to happen if somebody finds out what I've been doing, all that stuff. And you've got to go, hang on a minute, every moment you spend worrying is a moment you spend detracting, stealing, removing the quality of your life. Now, you've got to recognize that because it's just true. And so if you accept worry into your life, you are voluntarily destroying some of the quality of your life, and that's just not a useful thing to do. So, identify worry. How do you do that? Well, I would suggest to you that you go, okay, I'm going to make a list of all the things I worry about during the day. And you're going to listen to that little voice in your head. Now, you can have worry in verbal form. Yeah, that's terrible. I wonder what's going to happen then. Or you can have worry in imaginal form, where you're kind of creating scenarios about what's going to happen in the future. You can do all these things, but pay attention. Make a list. Just for one day, make a list of all of the worries that you can identify. And if you can make a list of worries for one day, you can be absolutely sure you'll have those worries the next day. And so you become aware of this worry process going on in the background. It's a bit like, well, you are making concrete steps to changing your life for the better, and it's effort well spent. You might say, well, I'm not very good at it. So what? Improve, get better at it, put some effort into it, because worry is a significant detractor from your life. The third thing to do is you have to challenge the worry. Well, okay, so if you think that worry is useful to you in some degree, you've got to challenge that. If I worry about everything that might happen, I'm prepared for it. Well, you're not actually, because when you worry, you're fundamentally catastrophizing. You're imagining yourself in a scenario where you've got no tools and resources, no experience, no knowledge, no skills. And you're thinking how bad that would be. Well, that'd be awful. The thing is, it doesn't happen. And when things do happen, you have all of your knowledge, skills, experience with you. So your worry, your catastrophization is never as bad as your worry imagines it would be. So the third thing you've got to do is you've got to challenge the idea that worrying about something is useful to you, because it's absolutely not. Now, this brings us to the fourth step. This is stop. Now, worry is a process, and it doesn't matter what you worry about. So people have likened worry to things like, a whirlwind, which is my one, it goes round and around and around and around, and eventually, you get sick of it, you go to sleep, someone knocks on the door, so your attention's taken away. But worry is a process that captures your attention. Now, whatever you put your attention on, your brain interprets that as value. So if you put a lot of attention on worry, your brain kind of thinks, well, you want to worry because you're putting a lot of attention on it. So we have to stop the process of worry. And just as an aside, well, it's not really an aside, I suppose, what you worry about is irrelevant. Because someone once described worry as like a tennis ball machine, shooting out tennis balls. And you're here, trying to catch each tennis ball, trying to figure it all out. And the machine just keeps out shooting tennis balls at you. And you don't have, the tennis balls themselves are just worries. They don't have any meaning. I worry about chicken, I worry about money, I worry about death, I worry about the climate, I worry about the politics. It doesn't matter. Whatever worry you have today, you'll have a different one tomorrow and the next day. You can have different worries during the course of the day. What you worry about, the content of your worry, and I know it might seem like important, because worries always seem important, but I promise you the content of your worrying is not important. If you want to get rid of worry, the trick is to figure out the process and to stop the process of worrying. And that's where we are. So if you've understood what worry is from this description and other descriptions, if you've identified the worries that you have, if you recognize that worrying is a useless thing for you to do and you're prepared to put some effort into getting worry out of your life, the next thing to do is to stop the process. Now, there are many ways to stop the process of worrying, but let's just keep it simple. And one of the simplest that I recommend to people is the simple rubber band technique. So you find this is just one, right? This is classic, but there are many, many different ways you could do it. The principle is this: you get a rubber band, you stick it on your wrist. Every time you find yourself worrying, because now you've identified that you do worry, and you want to challenge the whole process, you stop the worry process. You give yourself a twang. You say stop with your mouth. You see an image of a traffic stop sign, and you put your attention somewhere else. That's it. Every time, challenge, stop. put your attention somewhere else. Give yourself a twang, say stop with your mouth, use the word, see an image of a stop sign, so that it's got the verbal and the imaginal, and put your attention somewhere else. Now, when you do this with a little bit of, application, what happens is, because you're stopping an habitual process and you're putting your attention elsewhere, your brain figures out that actually you don't want this anymore because you're putting your attention somewhere else. So it will eventually, quite relatively quickly, let's say within a week or 2 weeks, you'll get less and less and less worry, and then you'll be able to go, you know what? I forgot to worry today. The process of worrying will just stop, or it'll be reduced. Now, there are other things, of course. This very, very simple exercise is not the sum total of all the tools and techniques and the theory and the application necessary to get worry out of your life, but it's a simple one. And now what it is really is a sort of a system interrupt. You're interrupting the habitual system, you're putting your attention somewhere else, you're telling your brain, you're retraining your brain. The final point, of course, is something that we could call, the final point is what we might call starve. The stop exercise is really good, and for some people that's a fundamentally important exercise and they almost don't need to do more. But for many of us, because we're complicated beings with complicated brains, we starve the process of worry. And that means that we allow thoughts to pop into our heads, which are worrying thoughts, but instead of giving them attention, instead of grabbing them and holding them and feeding them attention, which tells your brain that they're valuable to you, we starve them. Basically, it's a mindfulness exercise. We let the worry exist, we let it fly by, we don't feed it, we don't push it away, we don't do anything with it. This is a high level exercise, so I'm not starting you off with this, but if you're in my Anxiety Wizard program, it's called Let the Worry Fly By. I'm starting you off with the very simple stop exercise. So, confusing worry with productive problem solving. So what is productive problem solving? Well, remember, it's getting a bit busy this slide now. You live in the present. Can you do something in the present that's productive for the problem that you struggle with? That's productive problem solving. And things which are in the future are uncertain. They haven't happened yet, and they may not happen. Now, there are all sorts of things which happen, don't happen, etc. But productive problem solving is doing what you can do in the present to solve problems that you actually have access to, and therefore you have the ability to, in essence, solve an aspect, an element of the problem. So this is door 2. We're talking about worry. And if you can follow this ladder, understand, identify, challenge, stop, starve, then you have a really good pathway for learning some skills. And in essence, it's quite apposite that we're in my studio, because I've been doing painting and drawing for a year, and actually this one here, I like this one. I just did this one, yes, it's not finished yet, but that's all. I think it's quite good. I don't mind it, I'm pleased with it. But when I first started doing portrait painting, I was very poor at it. And so, I don't even have one handy, I don't think. I like that one, that's Roger Waters up there. You get better with practice. If you do the anxiety worry ladder, you'll get better with practice, and it'll be life-changing. You'll free up so much attention, so much mental energy and availability that you could do something like art or something else, because you're not wasting that time. It's a bit like spending all of your money by throwing it down the sink, throwing it down the drain. You end up with no money, but you get nothing in benefit from it. Much better to spend your time doing something useful for you, for your family, for the world, whatever. Be productive, not non-productive. Please like and subscribe if you found this interesting. Thanks for taking the time to watch and listen.